Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters. Welcome to this week's live chat. I'm sorry I've been gone the last 2 weeks. We're sitting here, Jessica and I talking like it feels like it's been forever. I'm so glad you're joining us here today though. It's just been a little hectic and crazy around here. We both have teens that are graduating high school. Prom was last weekend, plus our retreat. It's been a little bit of crazy stuff around here. I tried not to cry too much as my daughter left for senior prom, but it's just next phase of life, kind of fun. Anyway, so in amongst all of that, I'm also getting ready for our next big thing, our next Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, preparing for that because that's starting really soon. And I thought in this live chat, I'm going to recap the previous Free Motion Challenge Quilting Alongs and just kind of talk about which each one focuses on and maybe give some suggestions if you're like, oh, I really want to start one now, or if you're not sure where to get started. And so then, of course, I'll answer your questions live. If you're watching this live at 3 p.m. Central on Thursday, live with us, Jessica's here monitoring, and she'll write them down and give them to me at the end. And then next week, I'm going to talk about what you need to get started with the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, and then there we go. We're going to be in it and good to go. So very excited for the next couple months. I know it's a busy time for everybody, with Mother's Day and graduations and all the things. That's why all my videos stay on the website indefinitely on YouTube. You can always find them. So great to take advantage of it now or wait until you're ready. There's no pressure. I feel like I have enough stuff that I feel guilty about. I don't want my quilting to make me feel guilty either. So I'm definitely not going to make you feel guilty about that either. All right, so the next Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along starts May 9th. It's the Floral Frames Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. And I know you guys are watching me, have watched a lot of my live chats. You already know what I'm talking about. But just in case you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's a free video series where we work through a technique or a quilt together. And it's all about machine quilting. And it's a great way to learn or build off of those free motion quilting skills that you have. And I demonstrate on a sewing machine and a long arm, and it's just a lot of fun. So hopefully, if that's something that interests you, you might consider joining us. This is the panel that we'll be working through, and I do still have some left. And if you order now, you could probably get it in time before the challenge starts. Of course, if you're not doing it right now, maybe we'll have some in the future, but all you have to do is, go on my YouTube channel, you'll see all those videos. And then in the previous live chats, I've kind of already talked about this. This is the stuff that we'll be talking about throughout that video series. So each week we'll have a tutorial where we're focusing on a different technique for quilting the borders. But it's crazy to think that this, whole idea of the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along started, I don't know, gosh, I should have figured that up, 18, 17, somewhere around there. It's been a long time. We've had a lot of video series, and it's funny because I was kind of going back and sifting through them all, and it was kind of like taking a trip down memory lane. So I'm just going to hit some of those previous ones. All of these videos are on my YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe, that way you can join in the live chats, you can see the videos as they come out, but you can also go back and take advantage of those previous ones as well. So the first one that started it all, the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, and I know I've talked about this before, but it's so funny how you make these like flippant decisions and not realize like it's going to turn into a thing. So there I was in Denver, just wrapped up filming the Midnight Quilt Show, and I thought, oh, I just had some new rulers come out. Maybe I'll do a Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, and so that kind of started. I launched it and then went on a cruise and left the staff here to deal with the fallout. I didn't realize it was going to be such a big deal. So the original one, the one that kind of started it all, I don't even have a great picture of the quilt. I know it's here somewhere, but I just didn't have time to go track it down. I mean, it's cute. It's pink and white solid with some squares. You had to make your own quilt if you wanted to quilt along on that. And then we practiced through each little square and we quilted a little different design in each one. That first challenge, I've learned a lot since then. It's kind of fun to watch my skills improve as far as hosting these video series. But that one I think lasted 13 weeks. It was so long because I did 2 blocks per day and then per week and then had a finishing option. But if you want a good sampler course, you want to see a little bit of everything, this would be it. Because we definitely touched on several different designs. I only found a couple pictures on my computer, but a couple different designs, and it was really fun to play around and kind of start picking out how I want to teach and kind of explore this idea of teaching, on a video kind of setup. And so there you can see the finished quilt, kind of the picture of the different quilting around the background. And I mean, we did everything from meandering to those serpentine lines to ribbon candy to some meanders. We just touched them all. We hit all the things. So again, if you want something that's, kind of like a sampler, a little bit of everything, that's going to be a great one because there's a lot of videos in there. Well, after that challenge, that series wrapped up, it was kind of overwhelmingly shocking how much people enjoyed it and wanted to participate in another one. And so as I started building off of them, I've gotten better at teaching online, of course, and also figuring out how to structure this. So the second one that we came out with was the Feathers Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. Now, at this point, I still didn't have the capability to design my own panels. So I was kind of stuck finding fabric that could work or finding something. And so it just so happens that this was a panel that I had designed for art gallery. And I thought this might be able to work for the feathers. Now we don't have any more of these. These are all sold out. But this was the panel that we worked on. And it was you have to get kind of creative to work feathers into such a space, but we were able to manage it. And during that one, I talked about how to quilt a basic, kind of feather, then how to add some more custom looks. We talked about motifs and a lot of different things. So this challenge would be great if you want to learn how to do feathers. Now we're going to see here in a little bit, I redid this with some different content, but still about feathers. But if you're kind of wanting to see, how can I incorporate these into my quilts, that's going to be a great one to go there as well. At this point, though, in the history of the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, I had a few little handouts. There wasn't any expanded resources, and I also didn't start showing it on a long arm yet. So this was all solely on a sewing machine. Of course, you can do any of these videos in any order, and you can do them with any machine. But at that point, I still hadn't got that capability or, figured that out yet. So, and these aren't all in order, and I don't have all of them on here, but I just kind of picked and choose some of my favorites. This one was a little one-off. So this one was the Layered Machine Quilting Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, and it was such a short, I think it was like 3 or 4 videos. It was just about taking fabric, layering them together, and cutting away to create some cool effects. So this might be a great challenge or a video series to participate in if you want to do some free motion quilting, but you want, a smaller project when you're finished, or you kind of want something a little bit more fun and whimsical. And basically it's a reverse applique technique where we take multiple layers of fabric, quilt through them, and then cut away to reveal the ones below. And so you can see here's just some of the examples that I used throughout that video series. Now I'm going to pause real quick before I show you more pictures. There's a link in the description box. If you want to click that, it'll take you to all the previous challenges, or you can visit Free Motion Quilting or FMQchallenge.com or quiltingismytherapy.com. It's all on there as well. So you can find all this stuff there. So you can see here's kind of some of the progress pictures, layering, quilting, and then cutting away. And so really fun project, especially if you, like I said, want something smaller, you want something whimsical, and just something kind of fun and different. So this one wasn't quite like the norm, but it's definitely a fun technique when you want, it's just something a little bit more artistic. And so you can tell the different fabrics and different color placements, and we kind of touched on some feathers again. We touched on wishbones and some more leafy meanders. So there are certain designs that are portrayed throughout the video series several times. And that's just because I have my favorite designs and I like to use them. Those are kind of like my go-to. And so we see them in different ways. So even if you're like, I don't want to take a whole feather class, you'll still see them pop up here and there in different ways. And so it's a lot of fun. And I just do this picture, and this was not included in the video series, but it's just an example of that technique. And just love the idea of quilting and cutting away to reveal that bright fabric underneath. Now, I will tell you, though, it takes almost as long to cut out the fabric as it does to quilt it. So, again, a great project if you want something smaller, or, if you need something to do while you're sitting down. Then we kind of did the Borders and Backgrounds Free Motion Challenge. Now, for this one, this was more of our kind of regular format where we had the 6 videos where we talked about how to take designs for our borders and then also use those same designs in backgrounds. Now, for this one, you had to make a quilt if you wanted to quilt along with me. Don't have any more of these either because they're so so long ago. But I loved the Dream Big panels and that smaller kind of pillow panels they had. And so we made a quilt pattern out of it, and you can piece it and quilt along with me. And we're going to be actually touching on borders again in this next Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along coming up in May, but a little bit different way, different designs, different techniques. So it's going to be a great supplement. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to do the floral frames, you could go back and watch this one if you wanted to. And we talked about the herringbone design, or how to use those back and forth lines as a border design and as a filler, and how to turn the corner with a different design. This is something we're going to see coming up in May as well, how to add a different touch of detail there. And then also, we did some brackets, we did some leaves, we did some more wishbones. So a great option if you're wanting to tackle the borders of your quilt. You're having trouble deciding what to put in those areas. You just need a little bit of help with that. Then we did the dot to dot. Now this is one that was a lot of fun to film and to do. And we're going to probably redo this one sometime either this year or next. And dot to dot is the idea that we can use the reference points on our quilt to create these intricate looking designs really easily. And I want to pause and also say, this is not geared toward any particular skill level. Whether you're brand new and you're like, I haven't machine quilted a whole lot of stuff, I just want to figure this out, perfect. I give those designs, and I also give a little bit more advanced designs for those of you that maybe do have some quilting experience, but want to build your quilting repertoire. So it truly is. I try to make it for everybody. So at this point in the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along history, it's getting difficult to find fabric that works. I'm trying so hard to find a panel or a fabric that's going to give me something to sell, to monetize the videos, but something that people can quilt along with me and feel like, oh, we're accomplishing this together. So for this particular one, it's actually just a strip of fabric in the center that I found was really pretty and cool. That would be great for that dot to dot technique. And then we just sewed fabric onto the top and bottom to make our quilt. So not the best, as far as panels go, but it worked out great. And I had, marking out diagrams on there. So even though we can't get that fabric anymore, if you wanted to, you could take a whole big piece of fabric, check out those marking diagrams and mark out those spots and then quilt along with me. This is great because you get those geometric shapes, but they work on a lot of different types of quilts. And it's very regulated in the way the designs go together. Follow step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you'll get this shape. And so this is going to be great for those of you that are maybe not ready for full-on free motion. You just want to kind of stick with those straight-ish lines. And it's also one of those techniques that really grow with you on your free motion quilting journey. So whether, like I said, you're brand new or you have some experience, you're going to be able to take this technique pretty far. I use it all the time to create intricate shapes like this. And the best part, they're all based off 2 shapes, a V and a triangle, and that's it. We're just kind of using them in different ways. So again, if you want something a little bit more geometric, you can check out that video series. Definitely lots of fun. And you can kind of see some of the more dot-to-dot quilting there. Like I said, we'll redo this one just because there's so many different designs that you can, build off of that, and I didn't near scratch the surface of what I wanted to show. Then we did the swirls. So at this point, I'm just kind of taking in suggestions. I'm always listening to feedback from our challengers and listening to what people want. And so we decided to do swirls. Again, I'm trying to find fabric that I can buy enough of that's going to work for the classes that I want to teach. And this was the one we ended up finding. It is so nerve-wracking. I got to tell you, those early videos when I'm like, I'm going to buy like 400 yards of this dot fabric. And I have to explain to my husband why I'm buying 400 yards of that dot fabric. And I'm telling him, it's going to be fine. It's going to work. And it did. But he kind of joked. He was like, if you can sell that, then you can sell a panel. So this particular dot was perfect because it just lent us some good areas to practice our swirls. Of course, I don't have any more of this because it's out of print. But we can see how we kind of touched on basic swirls and incorporated some pebbles. And so swirls, again, are something we've seen and we will continue to see throughout the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. But this one was just all about swirls. How do we create these shapes? How do we make those effects? And it was lots of fun to talk through. Then we added a border. So, it's fun because you had to piece your little kit if you wanted to. But then everything changed with the help, How Do I Quilt It? Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. So in my mind, there is before the fabric printer and after the fabric printer. It was up to that point of all the video series doing so well that Jeremy, my husband, who is the numbers guy, the person that makes sure the bills get paid, the taxes get done, and all that kind of stuff, finally talked him into getting a fabric printer, a large format fabric printer. And so for the first time, I could sit down and design a panel that was going to fit exactly what we wanted to talk about, exactly what I wanted to teach. And that is so freeing because I can tailor my videos right to it. So that was quite the investment in the business and quite scary when they were setting it up and kind of like, oh my gosh. But this was the first one where we did that, and there was the panel. It's so fun to look back. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And I'm looking at panel design, fabric design, and I love that panel, but my skills have gotten much better. And I think it's true no matter what creative endeavor you go through, whether it's quilting, free motion quilting, design. And so it's just kind of fun to see that whatever you practice at, you get better at. So this particular one was kind of all about giving design suggestions for different types of blocks. So I sat down and I thought, what are very common blocks that we see, and what are some practical tips and designs I can give for those. So for instance, the first week we did plus blocks and 9-patch. And I not only showed designs like, oh, here you can do a continuous curve and a cross or X in there, but I also talked about why I would pick those designs. So this one is it's a sampler kind of. It's all about block designs, but it's also what I'm thinking about when I'm picking out the designs. Do I want one fabric to show more than the other? Do I want, a secondary effect to come out? And so it kind of starts really diving into the quilting, and this is where I really feel like I kind of gathered steam and really got better at teaching this kind of stuff, because I love being able to say, this is how you quilt this design, and this is how you could use it on your quilts. Because it's one thing to know how to quilt a swirl, it's a totally different thing to know where and how to actually use it on your quilts. So if you're stumped with picking out designs, you want a nice little, I'll say sampler, but a sampling of different design ideas, from continuous curve, from ribbon candy, a little bit of dot to dot. There's just a little bit of everything on here. So great option there. And all these panels they're about 44 inches by 50 some inches. I mean, the sizes range between the panels, but again, not required to take the class or the videos, but just nice to have that option should you want to. So then a whole new world opened up. Right now I can make up my panels. I don't have to try to source fabric. It's pretty exciting. And so for the next one after that, I did echoes and curves. Now this one also has a special place in my heart because we launched this right before the pandemic started. I mean, we were chopping or cutting and shipping as fast as we could before everything shut down, because I knew it would just be me. And so every time I see this, I get a little PTSD a little bit about COVID, but it's just kind of fun. And it really did, though, help me get through such a hard time. Being able to focus on teaching and still being able to connect online was really fun. That's beside the point, obviously not the point of the video series. For this one, we're doing serpentine lines. I thought, you know what, we're going to talk about one thing, these serpentine lines and plume feathers and how to quilt them. And we saw them in a lot of different ways. This was also the first time that I designed a coordinating border to go with the panel. So this was an optional one that you can add. That was scary too, because Jeremy was like, I don't know, what if it doesn't work? And it was just kind of like the logistics of it. But we did it, and it went over well. And so now, since then, everything has had coordinating border panels. Really, that came from the Help How Do I Quilt It panel, seeing everybody's pictures. They would take the panel and add borders. Now, for me, I find adding borders very boring. Not anything I would do, but we thought it might be nice to add that as an option. So like I said, I'm always listening to the feedback, looking to see what people are doing and seeing how I can help with that. So we saw the serpentine line, which is kind of like that pointy side of this plume feather, and we saw it in a lot of different ways. And for some reason, this design, it gives some quilters a hard time because it has a mirror image. And so for some reason, it's just hard to make that shape sometimes. And so if you're like, I've always wanted to learn how to do those, or I like the idea of working through this panel or making the plume feathers, it's going to be a great option for you. And we saw things like, how do you put serpentine lines in a border, some different variations. You can see kind of like those little feathers sprinkled in. Again, from very basic to a little bit, I won't say advanced, but more intricate looking. So again, if you're wanting to master that shape, plume feathers or serpentine lines, or you just want to, kind of work on that kind of technique, you're going to find it really helpful. So that's the echoes and curves one. Then the next challenge came out. I decided to do rulers. So this one was quite the undertaking because I wanted so badly to show how you can use rulers in so many different ways, because it's one of those things that kind of scares some quilters. And I get it, right? Like when you start quilting with a ruler, it's like you've got this weird thing on your hand and you can't, move it around. But I promise, after a little bit of practice, be a ruler ninja and flipping it around. And so when I sat down and thought, okay, how do I want to break this up? This was the panel that I designed to go with it. You can tell, some blocks, some borders, some areas to fill in, and then of course the optional border panel, borders you can see on there as well. And then here's the quilted version. So you can see there's a lot of different stuff going on with these panels, or through these videos, but it's a great way to show so many different things. And what we did is each week or each video tutorial focused on a different type of ruler. I've always been passionate about not making it required to have a lot of supplies, or not making it required to have books, or you don't have to have the panel. I want to make it as easy as it can be to start quilting, because I know that some people are nervous about it. But with the rulers, I thought, okay, the first week we'll do straight edge rulers. And here's some suggested straight edge rulers, but you don't have to have them. And so we talked through doing some geometric shapes. And then we did arcs and cutouts and all sorts of fun stuff. And so if you have been intrigued by ruler quilting and you're like, I kind of want to see what this is like, this would be a great free motion challenge, Quilting Along. Again, it's on my YouTube channel. It's free. And then this is when I started really showing how to quilt on the long arm as well. This, for the first time, the actual application of the design is slightly different on a long arm. Quilting a leaf is the same whether you're on a sewing machine or a long arm, but with the ruler, you're going to hold it a little bit different. And so you start to see now the videos with the long arm on it as well. So we saw some different ones, some arcs and some clamshells, and it was a lot of fun to come up with some of those different designs. And of course, now at this point, all of my videos are coming out with free quilting diagrams. So all the links for that are in the videos. They're on my website under the challenge. But they're just a great resource to have next to you so that you can take what I've talked about, print it out, and have it next to you. I'm very much a paper kind of reader person. I like to have it right there to look at. So again, you don't have to have it. It just makes it helpful. All right, so then next one, floor and foliage. So it's funny because it seems like I'm going through these really fast. There's a good amount of time in between them. It does take a long time to pull this all together, besides not just designing the panel, but figuring out what I'm going to show and then filming and then cutting. It's quite the undertaking. And so at this point I thought, you know what, let's do designs that are all different but have something in common. And so I did flora and foliage, nature-based designs, just an idea of how to group it together. Again, all the designs, we see some of them multiple times throughout the videos, but it's just in a slightly different way. And this was the panel for that one. I know I have a picture of it quilted somewhere. Most of my stuff is backed up on my hard drive, so I'm kind of pulling together pictures here. But this is so different for me. So different for me and so different, from what I would normally design. And so it was kind of fun to start branching out into other colors and trying some different things, some, more modern looking shapes. And then what we did is we went through and we filled in those sections with different fillers. Now, what's fun about the way my brain works is I think, let's learn how to quilt wood grain. But when we're quilting wood grain, we're not usually quilting it just in a rectangle, right? We're filling in an irregular space. So also being able to come up with areas to fill in that aren't your normal squares, it's just going to help you become a better quilter. So if you've wanted to learn, swirls again, pebbles, wood grain, swirl chain, this is going to be a fun option for you. You can see a little bit of the pebbles and we kind of tiptoed into a little bit of thread painting with it as well. And of course the wood grain too. So again, if those designs sound like something you want to learn how to quilt or how to create variations, that's going to be a great one for you. It's also the first time, you can tell each panel I'm adding stuff to it. I have a very obsessive personality and I love trying to one-up myself. I don't know, it's weird. But for the first time, I designed some pillow panels and a coordinating fabric collection. So one of the things I know that when you're learning how to quilt, it can be scary to quilt a big quilt. I think 40 by 50 is a great size because it forces you to deal with that, but maybe some smaller projects might be better for those that are a little nervous about it. Or maybe somebody that's like, I don't want a quilt, but I sure do want a flower pillow panel. And so again, that was the first time we came out with the smaller panels. You could quilt along with me on them. I'm not featuring them in the videos, but it's just a smaller option. And so that was kind of a fun kind of development. And then creating a coordinating fabric collection for the first time, and a quilt for the panels. So again, I'm kind of like, you can see the floor and foliage fabric collection. Up to this point, I had been designing the backing fabric and the borders, and I thought, it would be fun to design coordinating fabric. We have a shop here just outside of Kansas City, Missouri, and so we thought it's just nice to have stuff in the shop to sell. So it just kind of all works together. And I know it's hard to see in the picture, but the blue, the dark blue, and then like that bottom dark maroon color, that wood grain design, I designed that fabric so that you could quilt right along the lines, edge to edge, and create a wood grain. So it's just been really fun to create the tools that I want so that I can teach better. So it's really been too much fun, especially looking back. I'm like, I'm so grateful for all that. Then we did the feathers again. So remember I said we'll see this again. Same basic shapes, right? But just a little bit different application. Throughout this, here was the panel. Probably one of the most popular panels and challenges up to that point. It just was so much fun. The rainbow, which I don't normally do rainbow, but I loved it. And so we talked about things like how to quilt feathers in blocks and how to create, motifs and stuff like that. And so again, it's similar to the other feathers one, but I think you can do both and learn a lot about feathers. And if you're looking at this and you're like, oh, that motif looks really difficult, I'm telling you, we baby step into it. We tiptoe into it. It's not like you're jumping right into it. We're kind of building off of it. And then again, we saw a little bit more of the thread painting, had a little fun with that. And then how to use feathers in different ways. How do we, fill in irregular areas? How do we turn the corner with the feather? What are different motifs that we can make? It's a lot of fun. And then again, once I do something for one challenge, I kind of carry it on over. So created some pillow panels that went with it. Again, just a smaller option if you want something a bit smaller to quilt. You can see here with the feathers and the blocks, very similar. And then I had it in the two different colorways, the different quilting options. So again, like if you want something smaller, whatever you will do is what you should do. And then the coordinating fabric collection. So there's the luminous fabric collection. And so you can tell, like, I think the panels are getting better. The fabric collections are getting larger. I'm feeling much more comfortable with it, with the whole process, it's just fun learning. I think it's a blast. A blast. And then there we can see another kit for the pillow panels, should you want to make a quilt. All right, we're almost done. So with the next one, I decided to do the free motion fillers. So this one was the most ambitious undertaking. This one about killed me. I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot. I probably made it too overwhelming. If there's just too much content I was trying to put in there. My idea was that in every ring or every color, there would be one style of like pebbles and swirls and wavy and pointy designs. So there's a lot of content in there. And I did have some quilters say like, oh, it was a lot. It was just kind of overwhelming. Don't let it overwhelm you. Watch the video, pick one or two designs to try, and then give it a shot. If you are new to machine quilting and you don't have a lot of designs, kind of in your toolbox, this would be a great video series to watch because we cover so many different things. Again, with the free quilting diagrams. Now at this point, I'm having expanded resource PDFs if you want a little bit more help, showing it on the sewing machine and the long arm. And you work through this, you're going to have a ton of designs to use on your quilts. And so like I said, we started with meandering, we did swirls with pebbles, we did some wavy lines. So again, we're starting to see a little bit of repetition, but just slightly different ways. How can we combine the designs and what kind of things can we create with it? So really a lot of content in that one video series. And I just think the panel is so cute too. So it's just a great thing to work through. And then the coordinating fabric collection. Again, if you want to add borders to your panel or you just like it, just want to have some fabric, I'm using this mostly as a way to, get my skills down, and the pillow panel too. So again, the fillers is going to be perfect for all those different designs that you're wanting to learn. Can't encourage that one enough. I think if somebody was like, which one should I start with? I would almost suggest that one because there's so many different designs in it. But you really should start with the one you want to. What designs do you want to quilt? Then the mandala. So that was the most recent challenge. This one was a little different. I decided instead of maybe going with a technique, we would just look at the whole quilt or the whole panel and work through it. So we saw some different things like echoing and some different fillers. And of course, we had the border panel and the border, optional border that went with it. But for the first time, I released a larger panel. So now that we can do wider fabric, thought it'd be fun to have 2 options. So the bigger panel is going to be for those that, want a bigger quilt. Maybe they are comfortable quilting. They have a larger throat, space, larger throat on their machine, whether they're long arm or sewing machine. And so it's just a different option. Again, it just depends on what you want to do. So there's that plume feather again. So we're seeing the same designs, but slightly different areas, slightly different ways that we're using them. We talked about echoing. We talked about continuous curve. Talked about how do I show off something that I want to show off, and how do I hide something I don't like. And so again, just a little bit more of the thoughts behind the picking the designs, a little bit of the crazy process that goes in my brain. I don't show you too much because it's a mess in there, but it's just kind of fun to see what I'm thinking through. So again, different designs, different techniques, and we just kind of started in the center and worked our way out. Again, we saw feathers, again, in a different shape, different style, and then even some options for the background. So that's going to be great if you look at it and you're like, man, I really want to quilt some of those designs. I want to learn how to do some of that stuff. And so again, you can pick and choose wherever it is that you want, where you want to start and where you want to go with this. And then the coordinating fabric collection, which was a crystals geometric ombre prints. And so we'll be seeing those at Quilt Walk as well. So I'm using these in other different ways, not just for the challenge, but it's kind of fun. So that's a lot to sum up in 30 minutes. But like I said, if you're desiring to practice, you want to quilt along with me, you can check out any of those previous Free Motion Challenge quilting alongs. Again, they're all on my YouTube channel or all on our website, quiltingismytherapy.com. And just for my live chatters, I thought it would be kind of fun to do a little promo. So buy one challenge panel, you get $25 off the second one. So that is only going to apply to previous challenges. So not the floral frames, any of those previous ones. So if you're like, man, I might like to try one or the other, you can do that. You're going to use the promo code 25OFF. That's OFF, 25 off. And no rain checks. That's only good through next week. And doesn't include pillow panels or the floral frames challenge panels. That's just kind of the previous ones going back. And you can click the link in the description box if you want to see that, or you can scan that handy QR code that will take you right to all the panels. Again, you don't have to have them, but it's a fun option if you want to quilt along with me through any of those video series. So if you want to see any of those videos, like I said, you can go to my YouTube channel, kind of peruse through some of those playlists. Go ahead and subscribe while you're there so you get a notification when I put out new videos, or you can go to my website, Quilting is My Therapy, or fmqchallenge.com, and it'll have all of them there, all listed out, and you can pick and choose, look through, see which one looks like fun, like which one you want to take. And so again, I know it's a busy time of year. You might be sitting there like thinking, I don't have any time to quilt, but if you do, you can definitely take advantage of that. So it's kind of fun to see the Free Motion Challenge, what has evolved into and what it's become. And I love doing it. And as long as everybody is going to be watching the videos, I will continue to do them. And like I said, the next one is going to start May 9th. And we're going to do all sorts of stuff about borders and how we work our way through those areas. So very, very excited about that. I'm at that point where I'm frantically trying to get everything done and ready for the next big part of the challenge. So super excited about that. Well, do we have any questions? Again, one of my favorite things about the live chat is to be able to answer your questions live. Sometimes there's a lot, sometimes there isn't. But even if you're doing a previous challenge, you can still hop in the live chat and ask a question. You'd be like, hey, I was taking the dot to dot and I couldn't figure this out. It's just meant to have a great way to connect and to make sure that you're successful with the designs that we're talking about. And I also have a Facebook group that you can check out. They're really helpful too. All right, how big are the dots on the Swirl Challenge fabric? So the Swirl Challenge, I'm gonna say maybe 3 or 4 inches, not super huge. And we just kind of used them as a guide to either work our way around or to fill them in or to work on echoing. So that I think that's the size. Don't hold me to it. I could probably find the quilt and measure it if I need to. All right, do I have any batting recommendations? I do. I love talking about batting, or wadding, as it's called in other countries. the most important thing about batting to remember is that you want a quality batting. That's really the only rule in my mind. I have quilts laying around that I quilted with cheap batting back in the day, and they're bearding. The batting's actually coming out of the quilt. Now, I love it because I just pull it out. Eventually, all that batting will be gone. So a great quality batting. And there's some great companies out there. I use Quilter's Dream because I love the company. I love the people there. I've always used them since I started. That's just what I do. Now, beyond that, what kind of batting, what loft of batting you use is totally up to you. So a quick rundown. I probably should do like a whole live chat on this. I love poly batting because it resists creasing. It still has a nice drape, but it doesn't, have all the folds in it. So for me, I travel a lot or the quilts need to hang nice and flat. That's great. However, if you're like, oh, I really want a cuddly quilt, I want it to be super soft and cuddly because it's for my child or whatever, going with a natural fiber like cotton or wool or even like a bamboo silk blend is going to give you that nice drape. Now, it will not give a lot of definition in the quilting, so it's kind of a trade-off. And then as far as the loft goes or how thick it is, it just depends. Do you want it to be puffy? Do you want it to be flat? Do you want it to be warm? Just some things to think about. But I use Quilter's Dream Poly batting. I like the Select loft. So Quilter's Dream Poly Select is what I use. But that's just my own opinion. You can play around with that. But as long as you go with quality batting. And how do you know if it's quality? Well, if you touch it. If you can stand to touch it, it's okay. I've had some battings come through and I'm like, whew, that is really rough. So just a thought. Cotton versus poly thread. I have only used cotton thread for quilting. Why use poly thread? Well, I like polyester thread because it's stronger than cotton and it's low lint. That's probably the biggest one. The low lint keeps it from, getting all linty in my bobbin case. But I do love cotton thread too. I love Aurifil cotton specifically, especially if you're going to be piecing and quilting on the same machine. Just a great thread to have there. Poly, though, you can get so many different types of thread as well. You can get, metallic thread and shiny thread and all sorts of different ones. So it just gives me a little bit more flexibility, and I love it. But honestly, again, just kind of like the batting, whatever you use, as long as it's high quality, you'll love it. It just depends on the look that you're going for. Great questions. Well, if you're not watching this live, you can leave your questions in the comments. I get on there from time to time and answer them. Don't forget to take advantage of that promotion. It's for the buy one, get $25 off the next panel. That's only good through next Thursday, May 4th. And so I'll be back then for another live chat. Hopefully you can join me Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. I'll give you some suggested supplies to get started with the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, and of course, answer your questions live. Till then, everybody, stay safe, have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Happy quilting.